Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that just shook the whole world. You ever see someone who's used to getting their way every single time, and then one day nobody listens to them anymore? That's what just happened. Trump made a call to Modi, and that call never got picked up. And let me tell you, that silence said more than any words ever could. This wasn't just about a phone call. This was India telling America, we don't play your games anymore. And the whole world heard that message loud and clear. Now, let me break this down for you. For years and years, America has been the big boss. When they wanted something, they made that call and expected everyone to say, yes, sir, no, sir, right away, sir. But this time, the game changed. Modi didn't just ignore the phone. He sent a message that India won't be pushed around anymore. That silence wasn't weak, it was strong, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. See, America was waiting for fear. They thought India would get scared, start shaking, worry about losing money or getting cut off. But what they got instead was this new India, a confident India, an India that doesn't need anyone's permission. This isn't the old India that used to ask for help. This is the India that's got its own game, its own voice, and its own future. When America tried to throw their weight around, India just stood there, didn't move, didn't shake, didn't care. That's when you know real power has moved. This wasn't about a missed call. This was about saying no to blackmail. You know what blackmail is? It's when someone tries to scare you into doing what they want. They use your fear against you. They try to control you with threats. But here's the thing about blackmail. It only works on people who don't know how strong they are. The moment you realize you don't need what that person is offering, the power flips. That's exactly what India just did. They looked at America's threats and said, do what you want, we'll still be here. And that scared America more than anything. You ever been in a spot where someone thought they owned you? Maybe at work, maybe in a relationship, maybe dealing with some big company. They acted like you couldn't live without them. But when you finally stood up and showed them you could, everything changed. That's what India just did to America on the world stage. India showed America they don't have to take orders. They don't have to live in fear. They don't have to bow down to threats. And let's be real here. America isn't used to hearing no. They're used to countries lining up, begging for deals, begging for help, begging for dollars. But India just flipped it and said, we're not begging, we're building. India's money is growing faster than almost everyone else. India's army is stronger than it's ever been. India's friendships around the world are solid. And India's people, over 1 billion of them, are standing behind their leaders saying, we don't need to get pushed around anymore. Now, here's where it gets really deep. This isn't just about one phone call. This is about how the whole world works, changing right in front of our eyes. The old way was simple, America on top, everyone else following orders. But that world is falling apart. India's rise proves that the new world isn't just coming, it's already here. And America can't handle that. They're seeing that they can't just threaten and scare people anymore because the countries they used to control are now standing tall. And India is leading that fight. Think about it. Why did America even try to blackmail India? Because India wouldn't stop buying oil from Russia. India wouldn't give up on their own interests. India wouldn't become a puppet. America wanted India to cut ties, but India said, we'll do what's best for our people, not what makes you happy. And that's what really got to Washington. For the first time, they saw a country big enough, bold enough, and strong enough to just say no. When Modi didn't take that call, it wasn't personal. It was about principle. It was about showing the world that India won't get bullied into decisions that hurt its people. It was about sending a message to every other country watching. If we can say no, you can too. And let me tell you, that message is spreading like fire. Countries in Africa, South America, Asia, they're looking at India and saying, if they can stand up to America, maybe we can too. And that's exactly why this moment matters so much. America wanted to scare India into giving in, but instead they scared themselves. They woke up to see that India doesn't depend on them anymore. India has choices. India has friends in Russia, France, the Middle East, Africa. India is building partnerships that don't need Washington's approval. And the more America tries to threaten, the more they push India toward those other friends. That's the funny thing about blackmail. It backfires when the victim decides not to play along. Now let's talk about courage for a minute, because it takes real courage to say no to blackmail. It's easy to give in, easy to take the deal, easy to stay quiet. But when you know you're doing the right thing, when you know your people support you, when you know you've got strength in your corner, you find that courage. Modi not taking that call was courage in action. That wasn't just politics. That was pride. That was principle. That was power. And make no mistake, this choice is going to echo for years. Because once you show the world you won't get scared, that reputation sticks. Other countries now know India isn't going to bend under pressure. Friends, enemies, business people, they're all paying attention. And what they're seeing is a nation that only answers to its own people, not to some foreign power's threats. You know, history is full of moments like this, times when one act of standing up changed everything, when one refusal started a movement. This is one of those times. It's not just about America and India, it's about the future of who gets to be in charge. And the future is telling us loud and clear that no one country can bully the rest anymore. Not when countries like India are standing tall. So let me tell you what the real shock is here. The shock isn't that America tried to blackmail India. We all knew they would try that. The shock is that India didn't even blink. India didn't give in. India didn't take that call. And the silence spoke louder than any words could. The silence said, "We're not playing your game anymore. We've got our own game now." And that silence is the sound of a new world being born. Because here's the truth. India saying no to blackmail isn't just about politics. It's about respect. It's about being independent. It's about showing the world that you earn respect, you don't demand it. When India refused to be treated like a little brother, it forced America to see that the days of total control are over. The world is changing, and India is leading that change. And let me tell you, this is just the start. You're going to see more of this. More countries refusing calls, more countries saying no to pressure, more countries standing up to blackmail. Because once one nation shows it can be done, it inspires others. And right now, India has lit that fire. So don't look at this as just a missed phone call. Look at it as a turning point, a moment when India proved it could stand tall against the biggest power in the world. A moment when blackmail lost its power. A moment when silence became the loudest sound. And a moment when the world saw that India is not going to get pushed around anymore. Because at the end of the day, the shock isn't that America tried to control India. The shock is that India said no, and the world is watching, learning, and following their lead. The real shock wasn't the threat, it was that India didn't even care. You see, when someone with power throws a threat at you, they want a reaction. They want panic, fear, some sign that proves they still control you. That's how America has played this game for years. They built their power not just on guns and money, but on the fear they could spread with just a few words. A threat from Washington used to be enough to send leaders running scared, make economies shake, make nations bend down. But this time, when that threat was pointed at India, something different happened. Nothing moved. Not the government, not the markets, not the people. India stood firm, looked the storm in the face, and didn't even care. Now, that kind of calm doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from years of building confidence, years of making yourself stronger, years of proving to yourself that you can stand without help. India has been on that path, once seen as a country that needed approval from the West, that needed foreign powers to tell them what to do. India has become a nation that carries its own weight and makes its own future. That's why when America tried to flex, India didn't shake. The world saw something they weren't used to seeing, a nation standing strong against the so-called most powerful country on earth. And let's be real, America isn't used to people ignoring their threats. When they say jump, they expect the world to ask how high. But India isn't jumping anymore. India is walking its own path, setting its own speed, and refusing to let someone else's fear control its choices. That's why this moment is bigger than politics. It's about power moving right in front of our eyes. Because power isn't just about who's got the bigger army or more money. Power is about who controls the story, who gets respect, and who refuses to bow under pressure. And in that moment of silence, when India refused to react, the world saw that power moving. Think about it like this. When you're in a fight, the most dangerous person isn't the one who's screaming and making noise. The most dangerous person is the one who looks you in the eye and doesn't even blink. That's when you know you're dealing with someone who can't be scared. India was that person in this fight. America tried to rattle them, tried to force their hand, but instead of panic, all they got was calm. And that calm sent chills around the world because it told every nation watching that America's threats don't carry the weight they used to. Now let's talk about why India didn't care. First, because India knows what it's worth. For years, India has been building its money, growing its businesses, investing in technology, and making its military stronger. Today, it's not the same country it was 30 years ago. It's the fifth biggest economy in the world, a nuclear power, a space-traveling nation, and a diplomatic heavyweight. India doesn't need to bow because it has earned its place at the table. When you know your value, you don't jump at every shadow. Second, India has choices. America used to be the only option. If they cut you off, you were alone, finished. But today, India has partnerships all over the world. Russia, France, Japan, the Middle East, Africa, all ready to work with India. So when Washington says, do this or else, India can calmly say, or else what? We have other friends. That kind of backup is priceless. It turns threats into empty noise. Third, and maybe most important, India's strength comes from inside. 1 billion plus people standing behind their country gives it a foundation no outside threat can shake. The Indian people aren't worried about what America might do. They believe in their own ability to survive. They've seen their country rise from being poor, survive hard times, and still come out stronger. So when America tried to create fear, Indians just said, we've been through worse, we'll be fine. That's why Modi and his team can stand firm. They know their people aren't afraid. And this unshakable calm, this refusal to care, is exactly what scares America. Because threats only work when the other side believes you still have power over them. When they realize you don't, the whole plan falls apart. That's what happened here. America played the old game, but India had already moved beyond it. By not caring, India proved that the emperor has no clothes, that the threats are just words without bite. And that truth is shaking the whole world system. You could feel it spread across the globe. Leaders in smaller countries, long bullied by superpowers, watched this moment closely. They saw India standing strong and thought to themselves, if they can do it, maybe we can too. Because courage spreads, standing up spreads. And once one nation shows that blackmail doesn't work, the whole game starts to change. That's why this wasn't just India's moment. It was a moment for every country.